Maritime Matters is brought to you live by Bahamas Maritime Connection.
What is maritime?
Maritime, simply put, relates to navigation or commerce on the high seas.
Some say money makes the world go round. I say ships move the money that make the world move.
Who navigates those large international ships?
How often are international ships required to be surveyed and inspected?
Maritime also protects our seas and borders by way of our local Bahamas Defense
It is
Force.
very sad to say that out of 1,500 plus ships that are registered under the Bahamian flag, only a very small amount of Bahamians are employed.
Maritime Matters.
Hey, guess what today is? Well, you know today is Tuesday. Oi! And it's time for Captain Glenn. Are you ready on? So everyone, let's gather around. Cause Maritime Matters. He's a native of Andros. Say what? But he grew up in Nassau. Sail around the Bahamas, all around, with the Royal Bahamas Defense Force. Hey! Well, you know today is Tuesday. Oh yeah, and it's time for Captain Glenn. Let's do any boy. So everyone, let's gather around your radio. Cause Maritime Matters. Hey, well you know today is Tuesday. Say what? And it's time for Captain Glenn. So everyone, let's gather. Cause Maritime Matters.
Welcome one. Welcome all. Welcome to Maritime Matters. I am your host, Captain Glenn Bean. And need a song? You know the day is Tuesday. Boy, Stevie S don't play. That is my dog. He don't play. That fella can put down and say, well, I don't know. See, I give up. I gee. I used to say when we small, we getting beat, we gee, right? That kind on. I'm your host, Captain Glenn Bean. The producer for our show tonight is the great one himself, the maestro, Mr. Kishno Jones. That's the man with the master plan. We're coming to you live via Love 97 FM studio. This is Tuesday, the 9th day of June, 2026. And if it's a Tuesday, you all know the deal. It's maritime. Tick, 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 tick. Matters. We encourage that if you are driving and tuning with us, please do so cautiously. And ensure to take your time in getting wherever it is you are trying to get safely. As the saying goes, drive to arrive alive. Our sponsors for tonight's show are 101 Pharmacy and also Island Care Pharmacy. For all your medication needs, check out my little cousin, Shantia Hill McBride, and her lovely team at 101 Pharmacy in Nassau, and of course, Island Care Pharmacy up there in Freeport. Fill your prescription at any of our stores or send your refills via the online site 1on1pharmacy.com. That's 101 Pharmacy, all lowercase, all one word, .com. The three locations are East Street South and of course Charles Sanders Highway if you're here in Nassau. But if you're up there in our second city of Freeport, Grand Bahama, we are located on Explorers Way as it runs through downtown Freeport. We are secondly sponsored by Bahamas Maritime Connection Limited. At BMC, we provide a full slate of maritime security services. Good night, Auntie May, my good Auntie May. I ain't going no old now. You think I fooling? And me say, boy, you be calling me old. I might be up in age, but I ain't old yet. Annie May say she ain't old and Annie May 93. You think Annie May had good? Annie May, you ain't easy, you know. Annie Mae is 93 years old, people, and going strong. And she's our #1 fan. That's why I got to be bigging up and talking about her so good. Because that is my good auntie. And she, guess what? Annie Mae say, boy, Glenn, I know I got more than 10 years. So I get 400. I get 403 right now. And we'll see how that go. Girl, Annie Mae, you look like you get 410. I ain't give it nobody tell me. Annie Mae is 103 and going strong. Strong. Continue to do your thing, Annie Mae. Get that century mark and beyond, my dear. Because you know I try to come right behind you. So if you start getting a little shaky now, you can get me a little shaky. So yeah, I following you, Annie Mae. Keep it up. Tonight, dear listener, we engage discussions surrounding the cost, or should I say the high cost, of energy. Domestic here in our country and internationally around the globe. Discussions surrounding this hot topic should include the following: the impact on energy due to international activities. And when we talk about international activities, we basically talking about the anything happening in the world that will impact or that's causing the price of oil or the price of fuels or whatever we want to call it to go so high. I hear someone say, if you go to Esso now, it's over $7 a gallon. You know, I remember many years ago, I think it was Prime Minister Christie say, man, the way it's going now, we can expect oil to go to over $7. And I say, man, you know, that somebody got to check Mr. Christie here. But how fuel could be over $7 again. And here we are today. And we see no easement at the pumps. We are now paying, if you go to Esso or Sol Petroleum, over $7 for each gallon of gas goes in our tank. And guess what? Diesel costs even more. So I even didn't know what diesel costs, but I know for years now diesel are overtaken. You know, I remember one time I got me a Jeep, right? I said, man, this diesel, I could get this diesel because they said diesel way cheaper. And then diesel was like $1 cheaper than gas. And then you see it inching up piece. But now they inching up, it just takes strides and going way ahead of gas, right? And I thought that once you burn in diesel, you burning it slower and it lasts longer in the tank. But they ain't really all about that. All they're saying is energy is energy. So you burn diesel, yes, you may get a not so clean burn as gas, but you're paying less. But now you're paying the same thing or more. So even that is a problem, right? And it doesn't only impact us in our vehicles. See, a lot of us need to understand too that when the price of gas is high, to import gas into the country is also high. Because our main entity that sucks up and uses up a lot of fuel is the one that supplies power to all our homes and all our buildings. And that is BPL. Of course, in Freeport is Freeport Power. But for the rest of the Bahamas, that's BPL, eh? Or maybe if you're down in Inagua, Martin dealing with that type of thing. But it's the same issue. Whoever doing it have to pay a lot of money for fuel. And when the price go up, you hear the government crying, right? Our government makes a percentage of whatever that price go to. So when gas go high, the government making more money off us. And I said it. I said it because it's true. And what I think any good meaning government entity would do in any country is, if they know they're getting $2 a gallon when gas was $3 something and $4, right? They're getting half. And now the gas almost double. Now you was operating off that $2. Why? Because gas going higher, you taxing the gas higher. So you choking us even further. And what is our name but Michael Jackson to sing? All I want to say is that they don't even care about us. They don't really care about us. Because, boy, if they didn't care about us, they would say, look here, I'm going to freeze this to $2 a gallon. Although the price going up, we wouldn't do the percentage thing. We wouldn't take the 30%. We wouldn't take the 40%. We'll just cap off at $2 max. And even if we go to $10, we still taking $2. So we are easing the burden of you, the customer at the pump. Right? We are easing the burden of you, the customer, for BPL. As a matter of fact, toughest things to get now, I would put it to the government to cut out taxes on fuel altogether. Because we joking. Not joking, choking. We, the Bahamian people, are choking from our bills pertaining to the high price of gas. And when gas go up, air-conditioned gas go up. Oils go up. Everything in the oil and gas industry go up, right? So, we, in our country, just like the rest of the world, even the great USA that produce more fuel than any other country. Well, most other countries say, boy, they produce plenty of fuel in America. Even the US are choking. The citizens of the US, when they go to the gas pumps, they're choking. When they get a light bill, they're choking. Because guess what? What the US have done in most of their states is they utilize natural gas. They don't use bunker C fuel oil, the type of thing that we use to run those big generators. So Clifton Fair for BPL to give us power, you know. They just use natural gas, LNG. Well, liquefied, turn to vapor, and then they use that, right? Excuse me. So, unlike us, their bills don't be high because the price for natural gas was only a percentage of what the price was for other fossil fuel, because natural gas only about less than half of what the regular fuel is when it comes to carbon. The carbon footprint is very low, and the cost was so cheap compared to regular gas that if BPL, for example, was used, and here the government said we are now going to LNG. The government just got this big hundreds of millions of dollars approved. I think not the government, what the company, Focal or Freeport. You saw it in the papers yesterday. They was all over the news, right? That they are getting ready to do what they call a regasification plant at Clifton Pier. And you might ask, why would these people need to do a regasification plant if they use an LNG? Why can't they just use it when the ship bring it? You see, to transport gas by ships, the gas need to be in liquefied form. That way they get very far more gas in those tanks of the ship than if it is vaporized. So what they do for the purpose of shipping natural gas, that is, around the world, they extract the gas in liquid, put it on the ship, and when the ship delivers the gas to where it's going, they can't use the gas in the liquid form. I wouldn't say they can't, but the design of the machinery that use LNG, they want that in the vaporized form. So now when the ship bring that liquid to your port, before it's ready for combustible, for use, for commercial use, have to convert it from liquid to vapor. And then they send that through those big pipes. And it's that vapor that turns those turbines that use LNG instead of fossil fuel. Or, well, LNG is a form of fossil fuel, but very, very low, right? But this is what, and I don't want to get too technical on this, right? And some of y'all already know what I'm talking about, some don't. But the reality is, the ship bring it in liquid form. The regasification plant would cost some 200 and something million, last I saw. Converts that so that it can be used by BPL. And our power consumption, or our power, will be far less expensive. But we know that, I think it's Kuwait. It could be Qatar, but either Qatar or Kuwait are very, very large in the global arena with the supply of natural gas. So right now, a lot of natural gas that was available to the world is no longer available. Simply because they can't get it out of the Gulf. They cannot get it out of the Persian Gulf. And they cannot get it out of the Persian Gulf because Iran, who's currently at war with Israel, backed by the United States, is simply not allowing any ship to pass through the Strait of Hormuz, which is basically in the belly of Iran, that connects the Persian Gulf to the open sea. And the open sea being the Gulf of Oman, I think it is, and then from the Gulf of Oman going into the Indian Ocean, and that type of thing, right? But at the end of the day, all of those countries that provides fuel products to the world, which is a huge percentage of the world supply, are basically at a standstill because of this war in Iran not allowing ships to pass through the Strait of Hormuz without their blessings. And so this is what is causing, and it has a double up effect, you know. And should I go deep into this before we get into what we can do in our country? Because, boy, you know, anything with this thing, I can talk about this forever. Because what's really happening, dear listener, what's really happening in this world today is you have some countries that supply the world with fuel that have been locked down from supplying the world. The first one we heard is Venezuela. And Venezuela used to supply most of their oil to who? To China. And then we got Iran that was attacked by Israel and the US, and they were bombarded for days. Couldn't do nothing. And so there, the oil in Iran got a lot of oil. The oil in Iran was frozen, couldn't go out. And who got most of the oil from Iran? Again, China. So now, China lose more than half of their suppliers to bring oil to them, because those two countries were shut down from supplying China. Right? They couldn't supply nobody because they just matched up, right? They're under the control of the US, but not they. Venezuela happen to be under the control of the US right now, as far as how far they could go with giving out oil. And Iran is under bombardment so much that they can't just do what they want to do. Mind you, Iran continued to send out oil, but not in the supplies that they normally would, eh? So what you think China can do if they can lose half of their supplier, the oil? Because China is not going to shut down their factories. China's not gonna just say biggie like I used to do when I was small, but I used to make them say they gi, right? Because I wasn't easy. So China has more money than any other country on the hemisphere, on earth, except the United States. The US is the only country that have more money, and China revenue is over $20 trillion per year. Right? The US is over 30 trillion per year. So China got like 2/3 the amount of money that the US gets on an ongoing basis. So they by far the second richest, because the next country, all the other countries who believe they got money or who got some money, none of them revenue have over 5 trillion a year. All of them are below 5 trillion. Some is 2 trillion, 3 trillion. Ain't much even, I ain't even know if none is 4 trillion, but they definitely under 5 trillion a year. So China is 4 times richer than any other country other than the US. Now you think, dear listener, that China is going to sit aside and say, boy, we have to suffer because we's getting oil from Iraq, from Iran, we's getting oil from Venezuela, and now they under duress. We can't get no oil, so we just gotta suffer with all the money they got. No, sir. So what China have to now do is find other sources to keep their oil and gas coming. And what that cause? You see, it's a double effect here. Because China have money to buy it from anywhere they want to buy it from, and they have leverage to get it before me or you or our country or another country which is smaller and not a first world country. China got the money and influence to get the oil from where we used to get it. And they need it. So they're gonna get it. And so what these two wars, well, one war, the other one wasn't really a war, right? That was just a mashup move out. But what this war in particular has created is not only China now got to go elsewhere to get 50% of their oil and gas, and they can get it because they got the money. So some of the people who's getting oil and gas from those places can't even get it the way they used to get it now. They're getting it in spurts, even if they have money. And on top of that, all of those other countries in the Persian Gulf. We could start with Oman. Oman ain't got much oil, but they're right there. Then we got the UAE, right? You remember the UAE right above Oman? And after the UAE is which one? I think Qatar. Then they got Bahrain. Then they get Kuwait. Then they, well, I don't know if it's in that pecking order, but all of these are in the Gulf. And I passed the big one, Saudi Arabia. They right there too. Most of that oil and gas come out through there too. So even Saudi Arabia can't supply the people they normally supply, and the US being the biggest one. So we see that gas has gone up in the US and everywhere else in the world because the demand for gas has gone up. And when the demand goes up, you can pay more because they ain't got in abundance no more. So they can afford to go up. And we know how it works. Supply and demand, eh? I mean, I know much about economics and all the rest of that, but I got common sense. So my dear listener, what I'm saying to you tonight, or should I say this evening, is that what we are experiencing, what we are currently experiencing with the price of gas at the pumps, the price of our electricity bill escalating, is happening primarily as a result of the war in the Persian Gulf. And the US have been searching and making efforts to galvanize all of their friends and neighbors to go to Iran and tell them, you must allow ships to pass through the Strait of Hormuz because you have no right to stop the world from getting all this fuel. And not only fuel, they got, I think they say 40 to 60% of the world, which you may call it, come from Kuwait or is it Qatar? The world's, what I think they be put in the soil and make the plants grow, fertilizer, right? So we can see a reduction in food, plants, because they couldn't get the fertilizer to get their crops out the way they normally would. Because the fertilizer stuck in the Gulf, can't get out. But we'll start feeling that effect next year, or by the end of this year for sure. And so we got a dilemma, people, and we sit and we see the price going up and we don't even realize why. Some of us, we don't even realize that this thing ain't about to stop no time soon. We don't even realize that perhaps, just perhaps, price is going to continue to shoot up. And we may end up going $15, $16, $20 a gallon before this thing get a grip and start turning to come back down. But you know, in the Bahamas, we got money. We ain't worrying about that. Man, them said who can't afford gas, tell them park they can't catch the bus. That's our attitude. Wait, look your way, you know. Park your car and catch the bus. Because you're broke. And so, I only trying to break it down as it is, right? It ain't no joke. It's a serious thing. And every time I read deep into it, it hurts me a little more because we shouldn't be getting all this frustration because some entities in the world decide they want to take over and control things. Right? But there ain't nothing we could do. Actually, there ain't nothing the whole entire United Nations could do to stop. Otherwise, this would have been stopped. And those of us that have good sense, while we see that the country of Iran is holding a lot of trump cards, and there's no pun on that, Trumpy. And I say trump cards, you all know, you always believe this and thing, right? Trump cards. They're holding a lot of trump cards in the sense that nobody can make them give up the control of that Strait of Hormuz. Because the Strait of Hormuz comes right up against Iran, between Iran and Oman. It comes, and I mean all the way around. So boats have to be running along the coast of Iran to go through that strait. And the thing about it is, all of those other countries in the Gulf, you gotta remember now, Iran as a country takes up the entire eastern and northern side of the Persian Gulf. And all of those other countries share the other half. And all those other countries, meaning Oman, United Arab Emirates, Kuwait, Qatar, Bahrain, Iraq, and Saudi Arabia. They got a share. Iran got more than all of them put together when it comes to the coastline. So you can't duck Iran if you come in there to try to get to one of these places. And Iran is the king right now of the world when it comes to making drones. Iran was supplying Russia with drones for the war between Russia and Ukraine. Iran was supplying the world with drones. Iran just know how to make drones. And right now, although they were being bombarded, because they are so mountainous, they have found a way to build tunnels underground and live underground. and make more missiles underground and make more drones underground. So you can't even stop them from making these things. And there's nothing between a ship and the coast of Iran if they're trying to go through the Strait of Hormuz. So the U.S., with all of its power and might, and Israel with all of its air power and might in that region, do not even have an opportunity to stop a ship from being hit by Iran if they're trying to go through the Strait of Hormuz. They can't even stop. Now, they got interceptors and stuff, but none could be between Iran and that ship because they ain't happening on the coast of Iran. So that whole starboard side of the ship, as it go through, is exposed to those, I want to say hypersonic, but those ballistic missiles, those drones, and underwater submarines, and underwater mines. And Iran have them all over the place. So we see that unless Iran decides we're going to leave the ships alone if they want to pass through the Gulf of Hormuz in and out of the Persian Gulf for business sake, we wouldn't bother them. Unless Iran decides that, the rest of the world can't do nothing about it. Because like I say, I don't think any country in this world have received more bombs on their head than Iran did in the past couple months. Because I could tell you, dear listener, the US and Israel wasn't playing when they was dropping those bombs. And these are all conventional weapons, right? These ain't no nuclear weapons. And people be like, well, you know, why we playing around with Iran? Why the US don't just drop a nuclear bomb on their head and do them like they did in Hiroshima and you know, the nuclear bomb today is far more devastating than they were in 19, that was when they dropped that, 1914, 1912, anyway. Or during the that was during the Second World War. That's 1942 or something like that. Well, I think it was 1941 or 1942, right? Or it could have been even 43 or 44. I know it's just before the war finished. And I think the war finished in 44. So when they dropped that bomb in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, they are unforgettable times. But the nuclear weapon today is like hundreds of times more powerful. So there's no way any country, the US, China, Russia, India, Iran, these are countries that have nuclear weapons, Pakistan and South Korea, they have nuclear weapons. There's no way one of them could drop a nuclear weapon on Iran and the rest of those Persian Gulf countries don't get wiped out. And when I say the rest, I'm talking about the UAE, Qatar, Oman, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Bahrain, Iran. All of them will go with Iran. Because that nuclear bomb today will be so far reaching, the nuclear fallout, and it lasts for years. Because anything that nuclear touches is destroyed. And it sits there. And you can't even go in the area, because once you inhale it, you're dead. Once it gets on your skin, you're dead. So, to drop a nuclear bomb on a country in the world today, have to take deep thoughts. And you don't just do that in this day and time. Because you don't want nobody to do it to you. And plus, you target one country, but you can wipe out a whole heap of countries. So, I think we could forget. No, we couldn't forget. But because the threat is always there, right? Because we know that there are quite a lot of nuclear weapons available to Israel. But the reality, in my opinion, is it's going to always remain conventional as long as, I guess, Israel is not getting wiped out. And Israel ain't about to get wiped out. They got the US backing them. And for another two. And we hope it doesn't. Because the longer this goes on, the more our fuel will cost, the more our light bill will cost, the more our electricity. See, because you remember now, we have not only lights in our house, we get buildings with freezers to keep our meats, air conditions. And these things have to keep going because we want to live a normal life. We want to go back to the days where we getting sunburned straight through, the sun burning you up because you ain't got. And let me before we move to our first break, right? Because it ain't look like none of y'all want to have this discussion with me, because I know y'all know the numbers. We can take a break and come back to these numbers in a minute, but we want to talk about some additional things like how are we gonna address energy moving forward when we could use the God-given natural renewable stuff like the sunlight, like windmills. Use the wind and the sun, and we can have more power than we need in this country and don't have to depend on fuel at all. And you wonder, so why aren't we doing that? Well, you know how we go. I ain't saying nothing. But we're going to move to our first break. And when we come back, we're going to talk about quite a bit of things, right? But I just wanted to give that backdrop as to where we're going to go or how we get where we are. You are listening to Maritime Matters, people. On this show, we talk maritime. I am your host, Captain Glenn Bain, and I'm joined tonight by my wonderful producer. I got two tonight. Look at Craig this week. Craig on it, oh boy. Got Mr. Kishno Jones on the wheel of steel, ladies and gentlemen. And we are moving to our first break. And when we return, we're going to finish the litany of topics we want to cover. And we're going to keep it rolling, rocking, and that's how we go. Thank you very much.
At One-on-One Pharmacy, our friendly staff is ready to serve you. Visit us today for all your prescription and over-the-counter needs at our East Street South or Charles Saunders Highway locations. We're open Monday through Saturday from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. and from 9 to 4 on Sundays. In a rush? Send your refill scripts online at oneononepharmacy.com or ask about our convenient pickup service. One-on-One Pharmacy, providing personal health care with people at heart. At Bahamas Maritime Connection Limited, we offer first-class maritime security services throughout the Bahamas and the wider Caribbean. As experts in maritime security, we specialize in production of ISPS assessments and plans, verification audits, certified familiarization training, and port security consultancy, just to name a few. Our services also include provision of a security force to maintain all required ISPS facility security compliance. For all your maritime security needs, visit us today in Nassau at our East Street South location or in Freeport in the Kipling building. Call us at 392-3515 or follow us on all social media platforms. Bahamas Maritime Connection, your leader in maritime security. Let's help you make the connection.
Hey, guess what today is? Well, you know today is Tuesday. Oi! And it's time for Captain Glenn. Are you ready on? So everyone, let's gather around, 'cause Maritime Matters. He's a native of Andros. Say what? But he grew up in Nassau. Sail around the Bahamas, all around with the Royal Bahamas Defense Force. Hey, well you know today is Tuesday. Oh yeah, and it's time for Captain Glenn. Let's go, boy. So everyone, let's gather around your radio, 'cause Maritime Matters. Hey, well you know today is Tuesday. Say what? And it's time for Captain Glenn. So everyone, let's gather Maritime Matters.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Maritime Matters. On this show, we talk maritime. Maritime Matters airs weekly at 17:05. 17? What do you mean 17? 9 o'clock. 17:05 is 5:05 p.m. Every Tuesday here on Love 97 FM. The primary purpose of our show is to sensitize Bahamians of opportunities in the maritime sector. We also cover current maritime issues from the domestic and international maritime feeds. The phone number to reach us, should you wish to get in on this discussion during the show, is 322-5477 or 322-5683. I repeat, 322-5477 or 322-5683. To hear a replay of this show or any of our previous shows, simply hit us up at any time via our YouTube page. That's Maritime Matters Bahamas. Just go to your YouTube on your electronic device and type into the search box Maritime Matters Bahamas. So let's talk maritime. And we go back to our hot topics. And I've been basically sharing with you the reason for the impact of the hike in energy costs are from international activities stemming from primarily the war on Iraq and the attack on Venezuela oil. When President Maduro was taken out of Venezuela and the country lost control as to who going to get there. As a matter of fact, when that happened, remember now, some of the ships on the high seas that was carrying oil from Venezuela were hunted down and had to give it up. So this ain't no little jokey operation, right? And we said that if it continues, this war in Iran, where Iran now controls the Strait of Hormuz, and they always had control over the Strait of Hormuz, but they just didn't bother with it because it wasn't only. And internationally, if you think about, well, I mean, you probably don't know, but I can tell you, internationally, Iran has no right to stop ships from passing through the Strait of Hormuz and going to another country. They have something called free pratique, also called freedom of navigation, and any ship anywhere in the world has the freedom to pass through your waters so long as they're not going to stop in your country. And you can't charge them. Well, that's the international law under what they call UNCLOS, United Nations Convention on Law of the Sea. I happen to know these things, especially that one, right? So unless you have so much traffic passing within your territorial waters that you need to set up control over the traffic, like you need to put a traffic scheme in place, like you get highways on the waters, and you need ships to get permission to enter that passage. So you need to spend money to set up radars and towers and communication means and pay people to keep 24-hour watch and control the traffic like how they control airports. And they do have that system in some chokeholds, like the English Channel, for example. Right? And maybe what that place name up in Istanbul where you go through, where they have all these ships going through to get to the Black Sea. I can't remember the name right now. I've been up there and look at it. I can't remember. I'm getting a little young, right? But what I'm saying is, anywhere a ship, and you know, sometimes people ask me, all these ships passing through our waters and dumping oil and doing this and doing that, why we can't charge them? Charge them? They're not stopping in the Bahamas. And we are signed on to the United Nations Convention on Law of the Sea. So we don't have the opportunity or the I mean, why would you want to charge them anyhow when they only pass it? You can imagine if a ship pays to go through or near countries while they carrying their freight from one place to the next, and they got to pay how much freight will cost the rest of the world, including us. No, when they leave their destination, unless they got to go through one of these bottleneck areas that require control and radars and people monitoring and giving you permission and making sure you have much crashing going on, you pay for that because that costs. But if ain't none of that set up, you need to pay for that. And people think a lot of shippers pass through our water say, boy, you all go through some busy areas on the side where shipping is really busy. You will not believe every second something moving trying to get in and out. That's how much ships are there. You got over 50,000 ships on the high seas. And there are some areas where there's thousands of ships trying to get through in one day. That have to be controlled. Anyway, I digress. Right? Let's go back to energy. I like to talk about marine maritime too much. But anyway, how do we alleviate the intent for our country to move to LNG? See, we had a choice, you know. We had a choice. When we went to COP 19, I think it was, the Paris Memorandum, or what they call it, the Paris Agreement. This is when countries went to the conference of the parties, which we call COP, where we're dealing with renewable energy, because the United Nations decided that there's too much carbon in the air. Well, not decided, realized, because it's common sense. It's too much carbon in the air, and it's creating a disturbance on Earth. That's why our hurricanes are getting so strong. That's why sometimes you see it nice and hot, and then poof, all of a sudden you got a rainstorm. It's unstable is a better term, right? Unstable environment when it comes to the weather. Sometime in the middle of the winter, it get hot like summer. Well, I don't know if it's have that other effect. But we know that the glaciers in the North and South Pole are melting and causing the ocean to rise. These are things we know. These are things that could be theoretically proven and have been theoretically proven, right? So there's no big argument as to whether the stability of weather and temperature and climate on the Earth is being affected by something. And we know that over the past 100 years or so, we had a lot of combustible engines excreting carbon into the environment. And the carbon got up there. And carbon absorbs water at that level and gets heavy, and they clump together and they create blockages. So when the sun heats up the earth in the morning, and the heat's supposed to rise and leave the earth in the evening time when the sun gone, the heat just rise and get blocked by all the carbon above the earth. And when the sun comes in the next morning, the heat's still there. And the sun heat up the earth again, and more heat, and the heat keep, so it gets extra hot. And when they do find a way up, these are factors that could assist in us having horrible hurricanes, because there's so much heat in the air that when hurricanes do come and they live in feet of heat, they'll be worse than they normally would be. So, COP 19, COP 20, 21, 22, 23, I think they're COP 31 or something now, right? Because they doing one like every year. And we know our Prime Minister goes to all of them that he can go to. And he's been lobbying for our country for all those years from these COPs to benefit from those larger countries that are causing the problems, right? To smaller countries like us, so they call it small island nations like us. And Mayor Motley of Barbados was doing the same thing. And we get, I think, St. Vincent as the Prime Minister right now, who we saw and was here in Nassau recently to a conference that addressed that we as small island nations got to get together and try and continue to lobby to make these big states that have all these big factories and all that putting all this carbon in there to cause this problem, to pay us for some of the damage we're getting from the hurricanes and the floods and whatnot, right? And I want you to know, some of these floods, same thing. So we could run on and run on and run on with what's going on, but our Prime Minister made a pledge to the Conference of the Parties and the United Nations that by 2030, and this must have been in 2022, I think it was, by 2030, the Bahamas would have reduced its carbon footprint by 30%. In other words, whatever we're doing in 2022, when 2030 come, we will be emitting less than 70% of what we're emitting then. And the Prime Minister went further. Prime Minister said, we are going to do so by ensuring that all government buildings are solarized. Now see, the Prime Minister said, I think it should go on a bit further, but even without telling the United Nations, this is what we pledged to do. Our country could go further with solarizing the entire grid. And then he said, in addition to that, we will ensure that all government vehicles are electronic vehicles or electric vehicles. We're not going to buy any combustible engines to use for government responsibilities. So whenever government buy a car, and I can tell you I've seen a lot of EVs with red plate. I've seen a lot of them. And we know too that, because it ain't no secret, one of our ministers in government actually, if he doesn't have ownership, he had a hand in this thing coming off the ground that sells electric vehicles, which I think is a great thing. Because the reason why I am not driving an EV today is because I can't afford it yet. Oh, but I can get one. I've been on the lot, I checked them up, boy, there's some pretty cars, eh? Let me tell you something. Driving an EV is the way to go. They don't have no muffler. They don't have no engine. And people be like, how the car can move it? It ain't got no engine. It don't have no engine. And there's no muffler. You never have to service them. They don't break down. They don't have no transmission. They don't have no gas tank. They never go to the gas station. They don't need no oil. They don't need no water. Boy, look here. This magic, eh? I am telling you that those EVs, they run from one big battery. And of course, they get a couple pumps and this and that, and that's connected to everything to make sure everything working, right? But they're just as fast as any car. They're just as pretty as any car. And the only problem I think we have right now, and it ain't a problem, the only downfall, the only, I don't know what word to use, right? But the reason why a lot of Bahamians don't have EVs is because it's a new concept. And while you have 10 and 15 and 20-year-old combustible engine cars, these nice looking EVs just reach. So if you want to buy one of them, you got to buy it new. I think they start to sell used EVs in the Bahamas yet. Right? Now, if someone got one and they want to sell it, you could buy it. I don't think they have lots that say these are used EVs. But it coming. I want you to know that. You could soon be able to buy an EV for $4,000 or $5,000. That's going to happen soon. So, our government, our Prime Minister, on behalf of our country, pledged to the UN that yes, all of our buildings will be solarized, all of our vehicles will be EVs. And that is going to cut down. And another thing, we are going to move from fossil fuel to liquefied LNG, liquefied natural gas, or to natural gas. And that will reduce it by 50% right away. Because BPL is no longer going to be using that bunker C or that what you call it, fuel oil or whatever we call it, for those big, hungry engines out there that puts a lot of carbon in there. They will now be using vapor gas. And they'll have turbines that operate of natural gas. And so it should be cheaper for all of us. We should put far less carbon in the air, and then our country could now go and apply for carbon credits. We could say to the United Nations, Mr. United Nations, our country was putting out so much tons of carbon. Now we're putting out only so much tons of carbon, and the difference, and you say you pay so much per ton, we would like our money, please. On an ongoing basis. And we try to bring it down even more, Mr. UN. So we could start getting paid for the reduction in our carbon footprint. And they call it mitigation. We will mitigate the amount of carbon we put in there. And that's what you paid for. So when we have people talking about, oh, we got carbon credits, the government can get 11 trillion or this or that, whatever they would say, or 11 billion, I don't know. But the reality is this, and I found this out the hard way, right? Because I was under that impression. I say, well, we got $156 billion worth per year of carbon credits or carbon absorption. You know, our seagrass meadows, we had a university come in to the test, and it was concluded that our seagrass meadows absorb so much carbon out of the environment, because they're greedy. That what my studies told me back in the day was the seagrass takes 34 times more carbon out of there than the big trees in Amazon basin forest. So if you look at 1 hour, the amount of carbon that those trees, because carbon inhales carbon dioxide and gives off oxygen for us to breathe, right? Us and the tree, we work together. We give them carbon dioxide, they give us oxygen. We give them carbon dioxide, they give us oxygen. They take in carbon dioxide, gives us oxygen. That's how it goes, right? So the trees in Amazon, which are considered big forest trees, and they absorb a lot of carbon out of the air, just like our seagrass meadows. But the amount of carbon that one big tree absorbs compared to the amount of carbon that one seagrass absorbs, the seagrass absorbs 34 times faster. And the Bahamas has the largest seagrass meadows in the entire world. I ain't talking about just this hemisphere. I know I'm just the Caribbean. The entire world, the Bahamas is number one. And so if we were to be paid for the amount of carbon our seagrass meadows are pulling out of the environment, according to that study, our country should benefit $156 billion every year. And I saw that and I took it and ran. Oh, I break off running, right? Oh, all us could be billionaires. All fool me. I didn't know no better. And we still have people out there talking that foolishness, right? Talking about, we supposed to be getting 156 billion. That's a study that done gone down. And yes, and our carbon seagrass meadows still doing it. And yes, our seagrass meadows and mangroves on the west coast, Andres and all that, they are pulling that carbon out of there to the tune of almost $200 billion worth. If it was to be calculated and converted into how much money we should be paid for removing out of the environment, right? But the problem is, my dear listener, The problem is, and a lot of people don't realize we have, you see, call Houston, or say, Houston, we got a problem, right? The problem is, for us to get carbon credits, not only the Bahamas, any country in the world, because the United Nations started a fund where countries are putting money into that fund, and that fund was supposed to generate some $7 trillion within a certain amount of years. And from that $7 trillion, they will pay out carbon credits. Right? But unfortunately, part of the deal was that for you to get paid carbon credits from the United Nations, you will have to prove that your country mitigated the amount of carbon that you were putting in there. So our seagrass meadows can't help us, because that was going on from Timbuktu days, from before Columbus discovered the Bahamas from the east, because some other people will say when he come, he discovered this place. He just happened to be the first European to go back and say he found one place, right? But he made people young. Anyway, that's a different story, right? But prior to that, centuries before that, the Bahamas always had seagrass meadows. And guess what? After 2050, and the whole world had moved to what we call renewable energy, because in 2035, which is some 9 years from now, it will be illegal to make an internal combustible engine, something that could put carbon in there. Those pretty BMWs and Mercedes and all the rest of those nice fancy cars and things, Lamborghini and all that, they can't make no more of them. Well, they can make the car, but they got to put a battery in it. It have to be an EV. Because if they make it out of combustible engine, the amount of fine they will have to pay, it wouldn't make sense to even try put that on the road, because every time you drive that, you got to pay thousands of dollars in penalty. So the world is going to move away from combustible engine cars, and it has started a long time ago, and it's getting around to that more and more every day. The world is going to move away from bunker seat, diesel, gasoline, LNG. All of them will be a thing of the past. And the whole world will be operating off one of two things. If you're living in the equator belt, like between 30 degrees north and 30 degrees south, and you always got that sun hanging around, and you don't hardly see snow, and it get cold but not winter, not like snowy and cold like in the 30s and 20s. No, you can have year-round solar. God provided solar energy. The sun is a ball of nuclear. So solar really comes from the sun, the nuclear energy, the light energy, and the heat energy. All that stuff is free. All you got to do is put the panel on your roof to catch it, and then have some wiring connected to those panels that sends the energy into a battery, and the battery stores it. Or if you don't want to put them in a battery, you connect to BPL and you send the energy into the BPL grid. And I'm sorry, suffers don't hardly give nothing for it, right? And this is why the government have to incentivize people to put panels on their roof, and when they feed back to the grid, and you could check it, your meter is reading, your meter is turning backwards. If you get a real solar meter, it will spin backwards and show the government this is how much we paid back to the grid, and it's going to be recorded automatically, right? And pay me what I deserve. Pay me my $10 for so much units instead of $1 or $2 for so much unit, because when people use energy from your grid, you're charging them $40 and $50 a unit. So why are you trying to pay me 5% of that? And I given you power to give to them. So what the government technically should be doing, if the government wants to see improvement in our energy system, in our country, what our government should be encouraging is for everybody to put solar panels on their roof. And they can tell them by saying, look, you put a solar panel on your roof and you feed, you grid tie your system. When you feed to the grid, we're going to pay you for that. When you take from the grid, you pay us. Now you can pay us 60% and we'll pay you 40%. But it can't be you can pay us 60% and we can pay you 3%. Come on, man, that can't be fair. What incentive is that? And that's why some people decide they're going to buy enough storage batteries so that while they're making up all of this energy from solar on their roof in the daytime, it goes to the storage battery, and when nighttime comes, it comes from the battery back to them, and they ain't never got to use BPL. And that's a lot of homes, well, I wouldn't say a lot, right? But quite a few homes in the Bahamas are off the grid. That's why they call it off the grid. They are not tied to BPL grid because they don't feel like when they tie to the grid and give the grid all the power, they ain't getting no returns for the power they give in the grid. Or the return is minuscule. And the government ain't looking into it. And then we try to figure out too, why is our government moving to LNG as opposed to moving to solar? Yes, we need space to put up solar panels, but everybody got a roof. And if every building utilized their roof because they get an incentive from government to do so, to put solar panels, that means we don't really need fossil fuel to feed our grid. Because we make more energy when the sun is out in the day to keep us going overnight. That the big energy from the sun, the nuclear energy, by way of our solar panels and our grid, will keep enough power in our country. See, when nighttime comes, you're not using as much energy. Because first of all, the sun is shining, so your air conditioning got wake us out, right? Second of all, most of the offices closed because people home. And everybody have to have air conditioning on all the time, like when they're awake. And all those machines that are going in those processing rooms and all that stuff would pull in a lot of energy. You ain't need that no more because those offices closed. So we use less energy at night anyway. Most people go to sleep. Well, some of us don't want to sleep. We like to go partying and things, but most of us go to sleep, right? And when we go to sleep, we use less energy in our homes. So the amount of energy we could get from those solar panels feeding to the grid in the day will be more than enough to carry us through the night until the next morning. And it's simple maths, you know. If our government seriously wants us to do better with our energy supply, this country would move 100% to solar. And it's getting better all the time. The panels are getting better. The batteries are getting better. The inverters are getting, everything is more improved. So there's no real reason why we need to even consider LNG. Well, except maybe one or two, but not for us. Right? Because you got to remember now, and I hate to be the one to tell you, our government makes money off LNG when the ship brings it in. because the ship got to land that, and the government get a percentage of every ounce that every gallon costs in the treasury. And so how it works is, when the supplier brings in the gas, before they could even put that in the system to charge us for it, they already paid the government tax on that. So if the gas coming in with $2 from the ship charge you $2 for bringing that gas to you per gallon, and you get 1,000 gallons. That 1,000 gallons goes into those big tanks out Clifton Pier. All right? And although they pay $2 for that, the government tax is some 40% or so, right? And I just pulling that number out. I know they ain't far from that now. So the government will then charge you on top of that $200, $90, $80, something like that. Sorry, 90 cents, 80 to 90 cents of every gallon. So at the pumps, because now it got to be transported from there up to the gas station. So they got to charge the gas station pump what they pay for it. Otherwise, they ain't gonna make no profit. So they can put that profit on that. So that will like go up by 1.5 times to 2 times before it gets to us, or 2.5 to 3. So while they're paying $2 from the ship, they're charging us $5 on our end, because government tax have to come with that, and the oil majors profit got to come with that, and the gas station profit got to come with that, and all the rest of that. So when we're paying $5 at the pump, if the government was to take their 80 cent or whatever, a dollar off that, it's going to be a lot cheaper for us. And the government gets a percentage. So when that go up to $7 and $10 and $15, the government going up, because they're getting a percentage. They ain't getting a fixed amount. They ain't get no, what they call, bar, where if you reach that, it stops. Or ceiling. No. And gas goes high, the government happy. Because more money get in the treasury from the import of fuel. And you can't blame the government, because the more money in the treasury, the better opportunity you get to run the country. But that's our money. That's our money where we getting taxed, and this percentage go up, and then we suffering, we hemorrhaging. But that's how the government rolling, right? So I am not a proponent of LNG being instituted into our energy system. I am a proponent to get the whole hog. Let's go straight to solar. And the technology is there for us to go to solar right now. And instead of saving 40% of our fuel, we'll save 100%. And as this war in the Gulf escalates or continues, we will not be controlled by the fuel in the global spectrum being more of a demand, and therefore we got to pay more money, because nobody could control the cost of the heat that the sun generates. So once we move to solar, even more ships come into Clifton Pier, and eventually we ain't gonna need no more gas station, because we can also move now to electric vehicles. I don't know what all these gas stations could turn into. Must be snack stores, but there ain't gonna be no need for them in the next 15 years. And I'm telling you in advance what to expect. And I don't know how come nobody is going to help me this discussion. right? 322-5477 or 322-5683. Any of y'all out there work for BPL? Any of y'all involved in that infrastructure where we're going to put a regasification plant? Anybody out there that supplies solar panels, solar inverters, solar batteries, and hook up houses to solar? I's the only one. I know y'all out there listening. And it's just on and on and on and on. And we got 10 minutes left, so I can bypass my last break. How about that? Or y'all want me to take a break? I can take one anyhow. Ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to Maritime Matters. I'm your host, Captain Glenn Bain, and I'm joined in the studio by my wonderful producer, Mr. Kishno Jones. And we got 10 minutes left, so we're going to take you to the last break, and when we return, please, we're going to give out those numbers again, because we want to hear from you before the night is out. Thank you very much.
At One-on-One Pharmacy, our friendly staff is ready to serve you. Visit us today for all your prescription and over-the-counter needs at our East Street South or Charles Saunders Highway locations. We're open Monday through Saturday from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. and from 9 to 4 on Sundays. In a rush? Send your refill scripts online at oneononepharmacy.com or ask about our convenient pickup service. One-on-One Pharmacy, providing personal health care with people at heart. At Bahamas Maritime Connection Limited, we offer first-class maritime security services throughout the Bahamas and the wider Caribbean. As experts in maritime security, we specialize in production of ISPS assessments and plans, verification audits, certified familiarization training, and port security consultancy, just to name a few. Our services also include provision of a security force to maintain all required ISPS facility security compliance. For all your maritime security needs, visit us today in Nassau at our East Street South location or in Freeport in the Kipling Building. Call us at 392-3515 or follow us on all social media platforms. Bahamas Maritime Connection, your leader in maritime security. Let's help you make the connection.
Hey, guess what today is? Well, you know today is Tuesday. Oi! And it's time for Captain Glenn. Join your radio on. So everyone, let's gather around. Cause Maritime Matters. He's a native of Andros. Say what? But he grew up in Nassau. Sail around the Bahamas, all around with the Royal Bahamas Defense Force. Hey, well you know today is Tuesday. Oh yeah, and it's time for Captain Glenn. Let's go, any boy. So everyone, let's gather around your radio. Cause Maritime Matters. Hey, well you know today is Tuesday. Say what? And it's time for Captain Glenn. So everyone, let's gather, cause Maritime Matters.
Matters, people. You are listening to Maritime Tick, 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 Tick. Matters. And on this show, we talk maritime. Our show tonight is dealing people with the cost of energy, domestically here in our country as well as internationally. Earlier we spoke about what has caused the escalation of the price at the pumps. What is causing the escalation of our monthly light bills? What can we expect to happen moving forward? What has the government pledged as far as lowering the cost of energy to us here in the Bahamas? The number to call if you want in on this discussion is 322-5477, 322-5683. Any one of them will do. But yeah, I ain't got no takers. I guess ain't nobody out there work for BPL. I guess ain't nobody out there do solarize people's house. But I know some of y'all out there. Y'all are shy and scared. I don't know why, man. Come share some stuff. Come and share some stuff. We only got 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 minutes left. Well, look here. This show don't play. You know, shows go fast. So we covered those things, and we mentioned things like how our government of the day can incentivize Bahamians to place solar panels on their roof in a way that it feeds into the grid, so that when they have that excess energy when they're in them home in the daytime, everybody awake, and that solar that's making energy, it feeds it to our electrical grid. And other people can then use that, or that is stored in batteries that are linked to our grid. And those batteries and those inverters will later be able to utilize or give back that same energy to someone else, or even back to us when dark fall, because your solar ain't making the panel ain't getting no more heat from the sun, because the sun gone somewhere else, gone to the next side of the world, right? And it's a cycle. So you generate enough, the whole country will generate enough energy that is stored in batteries during the daytime, that when nighttime comes, the grid could feed that back to us. So we get a zero balance. Or even if you got to pay something, you're paying a very small percentage of what you was paying before you had the solar panel on you, and you're getting that free that coming from the sun. The biggest cost is the solar panel and the batteries. And of course, you got the inverter that have to make that inversion so you could store it. But you don't even need batteries if the whole country is going to go solar and the government is incentivizing for people to give back to the grid. You wouldn't even need no batteries. But if you want your own batteries, you pay for your own batteries and your own inverter, and you can still be tied to the grid. You'll have some stored and some in the grid. And think about the family islands. While we gotta have this big generator feeding the island from Selman to Selman to Selman through high tension or high voltage wires, you wouldn't need no more high voltage wire, because every Selman can have its own solar farm, and they're getting all that energy from the sun and giving it to the people right in that Selman, and that will be so much cheaper for government, so much cheaper for the people on the islands, so much cheaper for everybody. And the only question we gotta ask is, why are we not approaching it this way? Why don't we want it to be in a way that is a win-win-win? Win for the country, win for the people, win for the government, win for the United Nations, win, nothing but wins all around. Why wouldn't our government want to foster a winning solution as opposed to going to LNG to try and give us a reduction in what exists? And the problem with that reduction is the cost of natural gas skyrocketing now. So if natural gas was costing $1 a gallon last year, now it costs $1.80 a gallon, and next year probably $2.50 a gallon. So you still could be you'll be paying more for gas and more for gas usage than you was paying a couple of years ago. So you're not going to get the reduction because the cost of gas going up. But if you go straight to solar, you will not only get a big reduction, you will always have that reduction, because no matter what's going on around the globe, ain't nobody can stop the sun from shining. I'm making sense, or I'm making a little bit of sense. Anyhow, you all ain't listening, or you all ain't calling, or something ain't happening. But we are fresh out of time. I tired begging. I beg all my life. I get too old to beg now. No more begging for me. I am saying, and I'm only saying, and I hope somebody from the government will listen a little, so that moving forward we will have this in our mind to say, yeah, okay, so we already stuck with LNG for a while, but when we see this thing continue to escalate, how about putting a little more solar? And I took a drive. Lord, I got 1 minute. I took a drive on the western end of Soldier Road, because I go on to drop my boy home. I going up on Blue Hill, and in the back of Blue Hills, you look down, you see this big clear down land, and the poles and everything, like they're gonna put solar. And this is there now before election. It's long before election, right? So I figure now, boy, when they put that solar in now, oh, our electricity getting on. But for some reason, those solar panels can't reach. When are those solar panels going to go up on all of that space they cleared down to put solar farm? And I say, I got to drive on Soldier Road and go look at this thing up close, man. And of course, I go on there and I was able to see some things up close. But there's a dead end and they got the road blocked. But once you go up there and you turn around, you still could see basically how they have the whole thing set up. And I don't know when. Somebody could call and say when those solar panels will be in place. But I kind of get the idea that there's some reluctance for this country to become solarized. Because the government got some money to lose. And some private people got some money to lose. So let us suffer. Let us continue to suffer so that, we wouldn't win. With that, ladies and gentlemen, our show comes to a close. You have been listening to Maritime Matters. We air weekly at 5 p.m., 5:05 p.m. every Tuesday. I am your host, Captain Glenn Bain, my producer for the night, Mr. Kishno Jones. I say good night again to Annie Mae, to our sponsors, Bahamas Maritime Connection Limited, Island Care Pharmacy up there in Freeport, 101 Pharmacy is here in Nassau. I say thank you for continuing to keeping this show alive. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, just like that, we say to you, Maritime Matters, tick, 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 tick.
Station that makes you feel great.
Out.
Every time you turn it on. Love 97 FM. It's a great feeling.
Sitting in the morning sun, I'll be sitting when the evening comes, watching the ships roll in, then I'll watch them roll away again. Yeah, I'm sitting on the dock of the bay, watching the tide roll away. Just sitting on the dock of the I left my home in Georgia, headed for the Frisco Bay. I've had nothing to live for, look like nothing's gonna come my way. So I'm just gonna sit on the dock of the bay, watching the tide